This is Gradius, the Interstellar Assault released in 1992 for Game Boy from Konami. No, it's Konami this time around. They got rid of that Ultra Games crap years ago. Also known as Nemesis 2 Return of the Hero. Oh yeah, sure looks like a hero returning, alright. Yeah, go ahead and flee, you coward. We don't need your lousy bum around here. We'll take care of things ourselves. Worthless sack of... Interstellar Assault plays out like your typical Gradius outing, except not really, actually. This one has a bit of a narrative going for it that plays out as you progress through the game's 5 stages. Being pursued by a battleship in an asteroid field, eluding capture for a brief period before eventually getting caught and stripped of your power-ups, escaping your prison, dogfighting in space, and finally the usual final battle proceedings of underwhelming proportions. A rather atypical Gradius adventure that doesn't quite follow the usual convention of brief space target practice, fly through level, endure space hazards, and shoot the core boss stuff. But other than that, it's still the same basic gameplay. Shoot things, pick up pods to cycle through power-up icons, and enable the current upgrade with the press of a button. And also don't crash into anything because that's key. Much like the previous game, Interstellar Assault gives you some options. Your usual difficulty select, enabling turbo fire, button configuration, and sound test. You also have a practice mode that lets you sample any of the first 4 stages and get a firm grip of things before you tackle the main game itself. In both practice and the main game, you can configure your weapons layout, choosing from one of 3 variations of your missile, double, and laser power-ups that pop up in your power meter that you'll light up with power-up pods. Pick a setup by pressing up or down, flip the pages with left or right, and start a new game with pressing start. There's no presets, you can customize however you wish for a possible 9 configurations of mass destruction, or something to that extent. But other than that, if you've played Nemesis, or hell, any Gradius for that matter, the gameplay is pretty much old hat, even if the approach is somewhat unique for the time. It's not a huge departure from what came before, and once again, it's a relatively short game with only 5 stages that, with enough practice and memorization, you should be able to clear in about 20-30 minutes time. And then the game loops back to the beginning, but harder as per tradition. Control is as tight as it ever was, not much to complain about there. Visually, Interstellar Assault isn't a huge departure from the previous game in terms of the overall presentation. Your Vic Viper Proteus ship thing, whatever it's supposed to be called in this game, looks the same as before, and once again the monochrome display means more focus on more detailed level layouts and boss designs, which are far more spectacular than the previous game both in terms of appearance and general nuisance. There's some flicker with projectiles and perhaps a bit of slowdown even, but nothing too crippling, and even when things get hectic, Interstellar Assault holds up better than most. And for what it's worth, practice mode is the only place where you get to see the player ship in all its full resolution glory, before being reduced to MSX proportions, but slightly nicer. Speaking of nicer, Interstellar Assault sees improvement in sound output. Not so much in the sound effects, the weapons fire, the explosions, stuff like that, that's the same as always, but the musical output is pretty solid, mostly original tunes, a couple of which would eventually show up in other places, but generally befitting of the sprawling Interstellar Assault that the game puts you on. From the intense chase scene, to the ruins, to the escape, to the final assault, every theme fits the stage it plays in, and honestly, for my money, some of the better lesser-known tracks that this series has produced can be found in this game. Just great stuff all around. Where Nemesis rehashed what came before, Gradius the Interstellar Assault built on that foundation to produce one of the more unique entries in the series that, while not all that revolutionary or groundbreaking, does attempt to veer away from the static pattern of the arcade entries and try something a little differently, at least narratively speaking. What isn't different, however, is the tried and true gameplay, which is vintage Gradius fare that still holds up and is still fairly solid. What Nemesis does has been done before and done better elsewhere, but Interstellar Assault is something you would only find on Game Boy. Until recently, that is. The game was made available for play sometime last year on the Nintendo Classics Game Boy service for your Switch console of choice, and if you've played other Gradius games but you never touched this one for some reason, here's a good opportunity to do so, because Gradius the Interstellar Assault is well worth checking out. Funny how they added this one but not Nemesis onto this service. I guess Nintendo Switch is not ultra enough for ultra games.